Hey guys, I want to talk to you guys about our next tip in our 33 fitness and fat loss tips. And I was out here in my backyard, and I come out here during the middle of the day, mainly to kind of, tidy up the garden and stuff like that. But it's always my 5-10 minutes of sitting in the backyard and kind of relaxing a little bit, and that's where I get to kind of just move around and almost do my rehab for the day. And I want to share something with you guys. Over the last couple years, I've had my fair share of injuries, and my viewpoint on my injuries have always been different than I would say my clients. And I've always gotten people that have studied under me with training and stuff like that. I've always tried to push the notion to manage your injuries properly, because there's nothing that will derail a fitness program quicker than an injury. And there are a couple different methodologies or ideologies of how to deal with it. And mine has always been be proactive, be as proactive as possible, be attack it head on, and really try to go after the injuries responsibly and intelligently and strategically, and always with the care of fitness professionals, especially if you don't know what you're doing, but to attack it aggressively. And over the last 15 years, I've trained in martial arts aggressively. I've trained in, when I was younger, I was doing track and field and swimming, and there were always injuries that came about, and I was always very diligent about managing them quite effectively. I think the most I've ever been out from working out has been no longer than a week, and I've had knees go out, ankles go out, shoulder dislocations, ribs broken, mainly from martial arts, just because I love doing it. And if you're a friend of mine, or you're in my inner circle, you understand how important martial arts is to me in my life as a spiritual thing. So I've always used strength training as a way to strengthen that and to minimize the amount of injuries that I've had over a long period of time. So what I'm getting at is, if you're inactive, you have a higher risk of injury. But if you're active, I think that there's this ideology, or this train of thought, that I'm not going to get injured if I train. And the reality of the situation is, if you're inactive, you're going to get injured. If you're active, you're going to get injured. And really knowing up ahead, and not having the expectation that you're never going to get injured while you train, is very important. And the reason it's important is this: the people that get hurt with the notion that they're never going to get hurt once they start a training program, something psychologically happens that derails the program so quickly. And it really depends on the severity of the pain. But if it's really severe, 9 times out of 10, I see those people going straight into a depression, and really focusing on what the problem is, instead of really realizing that you've got all these other things that you can do. Instead of focusing so much on your weakness or what that particular injury is, kind of triage the situation. Obviously stay away from it. If it's knee pain, you don't want to be going into the gym and doing box jumps or jumping up on top of things. Be intelligent about it, but be proactive about it. Treat what you can treat, and then work on the rest. If your shoulder can move, if your back can move, if your other leg can move, you can work on those things and keep your workout program alive. And a lot more times than that, taking care of the neighbors. There's this saying, don't piss off the neighbors, right? Don't piss off, just because you've got a knee injury, realize that there's probably going to be an ankle and a back problem here in the recent coming months. So might as well attack those things now, and focus on those things, so that it doesn't become a bigger problem. Because a lot of times what ends up happening with injuries is, you'll have an injury, your rehabilitative solution to having that injury is to stay away from all type of activity till the pain obviously goes away, or the swelling goes away, which is very smart in the 48 hours after having some sort of an injury. But if your 48 hours turn to 4, 5, 6 months, there's a problem there. you've now compounded the problem. You know, it's turned into a much bigger issue than it originally was at. And by ignoring those injuries, you've now got multiple injuries, or you've got long-term chronic pain, whatever it is that you're dealing with. So managing your injuries is one of the most important things that you need to kind of adopt into your weekly, if not monthly, yearly training routine, because they're gonna happen, and you need to be prepared for how to deal with those things as they happen and be proactive about it. I can't stress that enough. I recently had ACL reconstructive surgery, and it was probably one of the biggest injuries that I've probably sustained in my athletic career. Will it be the last? Probably not. And I say that with all candor, because it's injuries are never going to be something that's going to take me out of mobility. My body was meant to move. Our bodies were meant to move. Mobility and being active and being able to pick up stuff and throw it across the room is something that I'm going to want to do till I'm 80, 90 years old, because when I stop moving, that's when I start to decay inside and I don't feel good about myself. And that's the important thing to kind of take away from this tip is it's so important to manage your injuries intelligently and strategically and under the supervision of a professional, but because it's gonna be so impactful to changing who you are in terms of your weight loss goals, in terms of your performance goals, and experiencing those goals head on and actually achieving them. If you side on the notion that your injury is going to go away when you stop moving, and then once your pain goes away and you stop being symptomatic over that pain, that all of a sudden things are going to be resolved, you're wrong. You have to be proactive about your injuries. You have to be proactive about taking care of your injuries, and you have to lower your expectation and just conform to the notion that you're gonna get banged up. If you play hard, you're gonna get hurt. That's just the reality of it. And under the right care, we can minimize, a good program can minimize and prevent as much injury as possible, but it's not going to be 100% all the time, and it's not meant to be 100%. We want to push you to your limits. Obviously, sometimes you step a little bit over the line and you have to readdress those things, but having a good mindset over how you're going to deal with those injuries, and that it's not going to be a setback, it's actually just going to be another challenge that you have throughout your year that's going to help you to get to your goals. I'm Joe Garcia, and that's our tip for our 33 fitness and fat loss tips for the week. Talk to you later, guys.